How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? It's September 13th, 2013. It is the 60th episode of the MMA Podcast. We got a good one for you today. We got to recap UFC Belo Horizonte, because the last podcast we did was last Monday. It's been a while. We also got an interview in about 2 minutes. We got Mike Kogan on the show, manager to many MMA fighters like Rampage, Roy Nelson, Nate Diaz. Definitely listen in for that. Lots of news to bring you. We got BJ Penn coming back, moving down to featherweight to fight Frankie Edgar. Wrestling is saved. Talking about the new season of Tough. Lots of announced fights to talk about. It's a busy show. I'm pumped for it. Let's do this shit, cock suckers.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast!
That's right, and I'll get right to the formalities because we're calling up Mike Kogan in literally about 90 seconds. It's myself, Ramses, and our boy Ross on the show tonight. Ramses, what is the word on the street, and where do we find you on Twitter, you beautiful bastard?
What's happening, suckers? Look, your life right now is total shit. I know it. You want to change it? You follow me on Twitter, The Aunt Jimmy Show. Word on the street.
Ramses is like Jack Youngblood now, playing injured. He's a beautiful man. We also got Ross Finkelstein, the intelligent Jew in the MMA business. Ross, what's going on, brother?
What's going on? Lots of things are going on. I'm doing big things. I'm making big things. I'm designing shit. And I'm defending my belt. And you can catch me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein. E before the L.
That's right. And make sure to check out MMAmental.com. Our brothers over in the UK. I'll let you know the call-in number in just a second. But right now, we're actually leading off the show. We got Mike Kogan added to the call. Let's ring him up and see what he's got to say.
Hello?
Hey, is this Mike?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, this is Jake from the MMA Podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, hi, how are you?
Good, good. It's Friday the 13th, so hopefully you've stayed home all day with your doors and windows locked, right?
I'm actually in New Jersey in the hotel, the Rebel Casino for the World Series of Fighting. I have a guy fighting tomorrow. Oh,
nice. Who is your guy fighting on tomorrow's card?
The windows were locked just because they don't open.
Who is your guy fighting on tomorrow's card?
Georgia Carcagna.
All right, cool. I actually don't have the info in front of me, but where can people tune into the World Series of Fighting tonight? Or tomorrow night?
Tomorrow is, I think it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on NBC Sports.
Definitely. Check it out. I actually saw you tweeting about Bellator 99 earlier. What'd you think of tonight's card? What a comeback by the Silverback, and what a KO by Pitbull.
Yeah, it was a great comeback. I mean, I'm friends with Justin, so it was great to see him win. I was really excited for him. I mean, he took a fight on a 7 days notice, and he had recently moved back to Pennsylvania. So I don't even think he was really in any kind of training shape. He just literally cut the weight and stepped in against a tough guy. And you know, he was getting his ass handed to him there in the first round, but he just sucked it up and came back. I mean, that was just amazing. So yeah, I was happy to see him win.
Yeah, that was a hell of a fight. I guess let's get right into it. I want to ask you first about what got you into mixed martial arts and fighter management. Did you get into MMA first, then realize you want to be a manager, or did you get into sports management side of things before you came over to MMA?
I was actually training jiu-jitsu, and I got into managing fighters. And then, and then for a while I went over to, I worked a lot with Japan in 06 and early years trying to bring some K1 action here to the U.S. And then they went out of business, and then I went back to managing full-time.
All right, cool, and yeah, you're the manager of a lot of outspoken names in MMA. Rampage, Roy Nelson, Nate Diaz. How did you come into contact with some of these guys?
I don't manage Rampage. I manage King Mo, but close enough. I guess they're both black, so we're in the right vicinity.
Word on the street.
I've been friends with Nate for a while, and we decided that we need to work together, and then I met Roy actually through a mutual friend after one of Mo's fights in Vegas, and then we kind of hit it off and decided that we're going to work together. So just word of mouth. I mean, all my stuff comes from word of mouth, just references, people refer to me.
All right, cool. So when you hear one of your fighters has made news with making, provocative comments, are you at first worried he may have said something, bad, or are you happy that your guy is, making the news?
I mean, it just depends on what a person says. If it's completely out of if you say it's completely out of this world and just ridiculous or extremely insulting, then obviously I'm not so too happy about it. But ultimately, these guys are all grown men. They can say whatever they want, and I'm not the guy who likes to masquerade stuff. So if they said what they said and that's how they feel and they stand by it, then I will stand by it with them.
Definitely.
Some people feel that it's stupid. I guess it's just a matter of perspective and how you look at things. I think empty apologies are stupid. So if somebody said something and it was just a spur of the moment thing, and then they feel bad about it genuinely later, then we'll come out and say we're sorry, and then it is what it is. But if a person says something and they stand by it, then I don't see a reason for an empty PR apology. If it really means nothing, then what's the point of doing it? So.
For sure. Yeah, I wanted to ask. It was great timing on Roy's part for this interview, because today he tweeted a picture of himself and Nate Diaz training. Were you a part of setting up today's training session? As both guys are your clients.
Well, no, I mean Nick and Nate actually went out to Vegas. Nick is friends with Roy, and they exchange text messages or whatever. They stay in touch. So I think they were talking to each other and said they were going to go out. And then Nate hit me up and said, "Hey, I might just tag along." And then so they already know each other. I don't need to say anything else. And in Nate's case, I did introduce him to King Mo, and I was like, "Hey, while you're out there, why don't you guys both like boxing and you can show Mo some jiu-jitsu and he can show you some wrestling." So I think those guys are all going to, end up training together for the next week. So
yeah, I don't know.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I don't know why I said Paige instead of Mo. I guess I was thinking about the pay-per-view or something. That was a brain fart on my part.
Yeah, no problem.
You're Roy's manager, and he's going to be taking on Daniel Cormier next. Cormier's a heavy favorite, but we all know about Roy's overhand right. What are your thoughts on going into the fight, and how's Roy preparing for his next bout at UFC 166 in Houston?
Well, I mean, he's preparing the same way he prepares for all the fights. He has a rigorous training schedule. He does a lot of sparring. He does a lot of specialized training for a specific strategy. Nothing's really different. Daniel's a really tough opponent. He's ranked number 2 as a heavyweight, so it's a tough fight. And he has a style that he fights under, and Roy has a style that he fights under. And it's going to be ultimately who can impose their game. I think a lot of people underestimate the multitude of weapons that Roy has. It's not just his overhand right. He's very versatile on the ground. He has, his hands have come a long way. He throws a lot of combos. It's not just the overhand right. He can knock you out with either one of the punches. So I think, it's going to be an interesting fight.
Yeah, I really think standing up and also on the mat with Roy's jiu-jitsu, that's going to be a much closer fight than a lot of people are saying it's going to be. A question about Roy that I got to ask, it's on the minds of lots of MMA fans. Why won't he move down to 205? And if he beats Cormier, do you think he'll try and move down to maybe get the same benefits that Cormier was going to be offered as the number one contender at light heavyweight?
No, I don't think Roy wants to move down to 205, and I'll be honest with you, I have no idea why everybody keeps talking about him moving to 205. He's not a small heavyweight. He's knocked out a lot of heavyweights standing with one punch. I mean, if you can knock Jack Congo out with one punch, you can knock Matriona out with one punch, and Matriona is 6'5", Jack Congo is 6'4", and they're legit heavyweights. Why would you move down? I mean, when people move down, it's because they can't handle a specific division anymore, or they're not fast enough, or they're too small for it, or whatever. Why would he move down? He's doing just fine in the heavyweight. He's ranked number 7, I think, right now, in the top 10 heavyweights. I mean, who moves down from being ranked in the top 10 to a different weight class for no reason? So I really don't know who started that whole 205 movement, but I think it's just stupid.
Yeah, he's definitely not a small heavy, and definitely is just about as big as a lot of the guys he fights. But I think a lot of fans see the gut and think he might be able to move down and better compete with the elite guys. I mean, so you're saying totally 100% Roy will not be moving down anytime soon?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, Roy's a heavyweight, and he's doing just fine in the heavyweight division. A physique is not the most important thing in this sport. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are chiseled up, ripped, and they get tired in one round, and they can't hang and do anything. This is just because he has a little stomach does not mean that he's not a heavyweight. It's just, he doesn't have a six-pack. So what?
For sure. I want to talk about the other guy we mentioned, Nate Diaz, also a client of yours. Have you spoken with him since he was slated to fight Maynard at the TUF 18 finale? And if so, what has he said about the bout? Yeah, I mean, I spoke to him when we were discussing the bout. I mean, I think it's a great fight. Gray Maynard is ranked, I think, number 5 on the UFC's top 10 lightweights. Nate is at number 7. So, it's a good fight. It's always good to fight guys that don't set you back, or guys that with a win will actually move you forward. And obviously, Nate's intention is to move forward, and hopefully Pettis will keep his title at the time and fight him for a title. So, it's a good fight. I mean, they've fought before. Nate beat him at the TUF in the house and submitted him, and then they fought again to a split decision. And a lot of people thought that Nate won that fight too. So, it's a good fight. I mean, they both know each other. I think they both have evolved a lot since their fights, and it's a good fight. I mean, we're excited. Definitely, yeah, Nate. I really think he's one of the elite at 155. I want to talk about his brother too. Dana White recently says that Nick Diaz has some kickback money. He's in no rush to return to fighting. Can you expand on that at all? Being kind of close to the situation. Yeah, I don't have a clue. I don't know what Nick's finances are. I'm sure he's not struggling. But I don't work with Nick. I mean, I'm friends with Nick. But I don't know, so I can't make comments on what he's doing with his life. I know he's happy at where he's at. I mean, he's doing a lot of triathlons, and he's still training actively. And like I said, right now he's in Vegas training with Roy and the guys over there. So I'm sure he's happy, but I have no idea what his finances are like, or what his future plans are like. Yeah, he's definitely a favorite of mine and many other MMA fans. So, just sort of selfishly, I hope he gets back in the octagon as soon as possible. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's still young, and he was very active when he was at Strikeforce. He fought a lot.
I mean, he's had 3-4 fights in a year.
Yeah.
And then he went to the UFC and he had a lot of big fights there. So I mean, maybe he's just taking time off. I really don't know, but you know, he's not that old, so he can take a year off, relax, and then come back and still compete just fine.
Definitely. Mike, before we let you go, I got a few questions about MMA in general I want to ask you. First, what do you think about the current TRT debate going on in the sport? Should fighters be allowed to do this, or is it starting to unbalance the playing field?
Yeah, I think TRT debate is a very personal kind of a point of view subject, and you know, everybody has their own arguments about why it's being used and what it does or what it doesn't do. But on a personal note, I believe that TRT use should not be allowed, and there should not be such a thing as a TRT exemption, for the simple fact that, you know, if you are getting to the age where your testosterone is getting lower and you can no longer compete at an elite level, then you need to go find something else to do. I mean, you know, it's just that simple. I mean, I'm 5'6". I will never play basketball because I'm 5'6". Does that mean I should be allowed to wear stilts and run around at 6'7"? Just because I feel like that would, you know, improve my jump shot. I mean, you know, bottom line is, you know, we've seen a lot of cases where TRT has been used or allowed to be used legally post illegal abuse. So it's a known fact. If you get on testosterone and then you get off of it, it'll lower your testosterone because your body stops producing it, right? So then you come back and you go, hey, my testosterone is dangerously low. I need an exemption, and they give you an exemption. So basically, you get popped once, and then you get it authorized legally, and then you're back on it. It just doesn't make any sense. And the fact of the matter is, you know, there's a lot of arguments about skill factor. Yeah, TRT is not going to make you, you know, a more skilled athlete. But what it does is it allows you to go through a camp with less injuries, with faster recovery, and hence it literally enhances your performance. So, I mean, I think that's a factor, you know, especially if you're fighting against a guy who's not on TRT, because he had to go through all the bumps and bruises that your body healed a lot faster and absorbed a lot easier because, you know, you're yoked up on TRT. And it's not like these guys maintain medical guidelines from taking it. They overtake it and they tamper down closer to the fight to reach whatever level they need to be at to be allowed. I mean, that's just cheating, flat out, no matter how you spin it. That's my view. But, you know, nobody cares what I think. So,
what would you say if one of your fighters came to you and said they were thinking about, you know, doing TRT?
Oh, I would tell them go ahead and do it. I mean, like I said, it's legal, it's allowed. There's a standard for it. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but at the same time, if it's allowed and it's legal and they're allowed to do it within the rules, then that's fine. You know what I mean? I mean, I think a lot of rules are stupid, but I still follow them because that's the rules. You know what I mean? So it's not the matter of I have a moral standing against TRT. You know what I mean? I don't have a moral standing against TRT. I mean, it's allowed. It's fine. But I believe if I was asked of my opinion about it, then I would say that it shouldn't be allowed. That being said, it's allowed. So how can I tell my guy, well, don't get on it and go in there with depleted testosterone and fight against a guy who's yoked up on the stuff just because it violates my moral, you know, standing. I mean, you know, when it comes to the use of TRT within the allowed guidelines, it's not a matter of what I think. It's just a matter of what the fighter thinks and what he thinks he should do. And if they think they should do it, then let him do it.
Definitely. Two big title fights coming up. First one I want to ask you about is the next one, UFC 165, the 205 title, John Jones and Alex Gustafsson. Anyway, Gus has a chance to dethrone Bones in this one?
Well, I mean, Pettis armbarred Henderson, and I don't think anybody thought it was going to take that, you know, that short of a time. You know, we just saw in the Bellator fight where Justin Wilcox was getting his ass kicked for a whole round and then came back to choke the guy out. You know, MMA is a very unpredictable sport. One punch can change everything. So, yeah, does he have a chance? Absolutely. If he didn't have a chance, then there would be no reason for him to fight. he didn't just waltz into a title fight. I mean, he earned it by beating other top contenders to get into the title fight. So yeah, I think anybody has a chance to beat anybody on any given night.
The other one I wanted to get your thoughts on, Silva Weidman 2. Who you got in that one?
Oh, I had to take Silva. Silva.
Anderson.
I don't think he's going to. Yeah, I think Silva is going to go in there and just annihilate this guy.
And the final
Silva
fight.
was annihilating him.
Yeah.
Silva was annihilating him in their first fight. I mean, he got caught because he was, he dropped his hands and he overplayed for the crowd a little bit and he got caught with it, but he's not going to do that again. And short of that, I don't see why I wouldn't doing anything to him.
For sure. Last fight prediction I'm going to make you make tomorrow night. Floyd Mayweather versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. Who you got in that one?
Man, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, that fight is just, that's why I think tomorrow's fight is going to break all pay-per-view records. I mean, they had, 13,000 people show up for the weigh-ins today. I mean, they had a $20 million gate. That is just psychotic. I mean, $20 million in just a gate.
I know.
Without the pay-per-view, without any kind of closed-circuit television, international pay-per-view distribution. So, I mean, this fight is a monster fight. And, again, I mean, you look at somebody like Canelo, and he's got all the tools he needs to beat Mayweather, but then again, how do you go against a guy who's never lost before? You know what I mean? Like, he's never lost before. So, I think, I really don't know. I don't even want to pick. I just want to get tomorrow's fight over with so we can come back to our room and order the fight and enjoy it with everybody else.
For sure. 44-0, 42-0-1. The O has got to go for one guy. Last question. Today is Friday the 13th, and obviously we know the famous horror series of the same name. What is Mike Kogan's favorite horror movie of all time?
Horror movie of all time. I'm not really big on watching horror movies because they're kind of stupid. So, I don't know. When I was a kid, my not favorite, but the one that horrified me was the most was the Night of the Living Dead. I think that movie's like 30 years old. So
zombie movie, yeah.
I watched it later as an adult, and I was laughing at it. So I don't really know. I don't have a horror movie.
I guess if you don't like, what is your favorite movie of all time then?
Favorite movie, horror movie, or just movie?
Any kind of movie.
I don't have a favorite movie of all time because I like movies. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a movie guy. I think people that just say this is my favorite movie of all time are just not movie guys. They don't watch a lot of movies. I love movies. I watch movies all the time. So
you have a few favorites you want to shout?
Favorite movie of all time.
You have a few favorites you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, you got The Godfather, Scarface,
of course,
Men on Fire. That was a badass movie. But I mean, there's so many good movies. There's just tons of good movies. I mean, I think, I don't think anybody has a favorite movie of all time. I mean, I think there's just too many movies that are good. So I like all kinds of movies.
For sure. Thank you so much. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Kogan, MikeKogan. Any plugs or shout outs you'd like to get out there before we let you go?
I'm going to plug nobody to shout out. Anytime you do a shout out, you forget somebody, then they get pissed. So nobody shout out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Again, follow him on Twitter at Mike Kogan. Don't forget to root on his fighters and their upcoming fights. Take it easy, Mike. Thanks again for coming on tonight.
Thanks, brother. Bye.
Have a good one. And there he goes, Mike Kogan, manager for King Mo, not Rampage. Even though I told Mike that it was a brain fart, I really thought he was Rampage's manager. Whoops. Fucked up there, but it was a good interview. He had some pretty interesting comments about everything. I like how he sort of disagrees with TRT, but if a fighter's on it, you should take it, and that's really, the stance managers should have. You want your fighter doing everything they can. That was a fun interview. Ramses, actually, I mentioned he was like Jack Youngblood. He was podcasting injured. He actually had to dip out. Not feeling too well tonight. So it's just me and Ross. Again, follow him on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein. And if you want to call in, the phone number is 213-457- 3380. The Skype is the MMA Podcast. You also can tweet us at the MMA Podcast. We are now doing Friday nights. If you're listening to an archived version, it's Friday the 13th. We're doing it at Friday, midnight Eastern, 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific for the time being. We might make it a little bit earlier in the upcoming weeks. Who knows? But it's just me and Ross here. Ross, what did you think of the interview, other than the fact that I knew you were fuming when he picked against your boy Weidman? I appreciate you staying muted for that and not popping on and just saying fuck. But no, a lot of restraint on your part. What'd you think of the interview?
Jake, I like you. I like your show, so I'm just going to stay quiet.
That's a good man, Ross Finkelstein. All right, let's get to UFC Belo Horizonte. A recap of that. We've not done a show for a while. One of the longest breaks we've taken from doing the show. We went from last Monday to this Friday, and UFC Belo Horizonte was this past Wednesday. Really only 3 fights on this card mattered, so I'm only going to talk about 3 fights. If you want to look up the rest of the results and Google that shit, if you're listening to this, then you got Google, cocksucker. I thought it was kind of interesting. We had maybe 3 title eliminator matches. Sort of. I don't want to say title eliminator because I don't think Formiga, Okami, and Bader, I don't think they were a win away, but the guys who won all may have earned a title shot in Joseph Benavidez at flyweight, Ronaldo Souza at middleweight, and Glover Teixeira at light heavyweight. Let's start with the flyweight match. Joseph Benavidez extending Team Alpha Male's undefeated streak since Dwayne Ludwig took over. Definitely check out that interview in our archives. We had him on a couple months ago, right when he was starting to take over the helm. Benavidez versus Formiga, juicier Formiga, definitely a formidable opponent. He was one of the top guys over when the top flyweights were at Tachi Palace fights. He and Ian McCall were on top of that. Coming over in the UFC, Benavidez handed him his lunch. I mean, Jesus Christ, that was a hell of a performance by Joseph. What'd you think of the fight, Ross?
I thought it was an amazing performance by Joseph Benavidez yet again, and it's 2 in a row, 2 amazing knockouts in a row, and this guy's knocked plenty of people out. He's submitted plenty of people. If Demetrius Johnson wasn't in the division, he would be the flyweight champion. He's so good, and I do think that with the addition of Dwayne Ludwig as the head coach, the striking coach at Team Alpha Male, I do think he can I think he can put it on a better performance against Mighty Mouse. It's still tough to say. Mighty Mouse is just so fast, and his shot, that power double that he has when he just shoots in, he gets you every single time. There's no one. I don't think there's anyone in the division who can stop Mighty Mouse's power double. But he does have tremendous striking, Joseph Benavidez, and Mighty Mouse's weakness is while he's on the feet, he gets rocked. It's happened in the last 2 fights. He's gotten hurt. Moraga was able to hurt him in the 4th, broke his nose, and John Dotson was able to hurt him in the 2nd round. He actually nearly beat him. So I do think Joseph Benavidez I think he has the ability to beat Demetrius Johnson, but it all depends whether or not he can use his striking to win that fight, because he's not winning it with his wrestling.
You know, and Johnson needed to fight McCall twice, and now it's looking like he's going to need to fight Joseph Benavidez twice, in a fight that I think is going to be very close. You know, when the UFC made the flyweight division, people were saying, oh, they're making this for Joseph Benavidez, because the only person he can't beat is Dominic Cruz, and Dominic Cruz is at the top of the heap in 135, so they're literally making this for Benavidez. No one, I mean, I don't want to say no one, but not a lot of people thought that Mighty Mouse would beat Ian McCall, let alone win the flyweight tournament they put on in 2011. So Mighty Mouse's reign will definitely have a challenger when Joseph Benavidez steps in against him in what will probably be his next title fight. Let's move on. Ronaldo Jacare Souza. I love him because he is the alligator, and I am alumni of the University of Florida Gators, so we're both Gators. We both like doing the chomp. Jacare Souza is looking incredible. Since joining the UFC in 2013, he's finished Chris Camozzi and now Yushin Okami in the first round. His last 2 fights in Strikeforce were also of the finish in the first round variety, finishing Ed Herman with a Kimura and Derek Brunson literally just 41 seconds into the fight, finishing him via KO. Jacare is looking very dangerous, and if Weidman beats Silva, Jacare will probably be Weidman's next test. He's sort of gone back and forth. I saw reports saying he would fight Anderson. I saw reports saying if Anderson beats Weidman, he'll move up to 205. So I'm not sure what's going to go on there. But Jacare definitely is looking good. I mean, his striking has come so far since he lost to Luke Rockhold almost exactly 2 years ago. Just looks so impressive, knocking out Derek Brunson, like I mentioned, TKOing Yushin Okami halfway through the first round. What did you think of the fight first? And then I want to talk about a potential, stylistic matchup against Chris Weidman.
I thought it was an amazing performance by Jacare. Again, his fourth first round finish and his 5th finish in a row. 5-fight winning streak, 5 finishes. I believe the guy is the number 1 contender. I think he is the clear-cut number 1 contender, honestly, and I put him above Vitor. I thought about this today, and I put him above Vitor because of the fact that Vitor is on a 2-fight winning streak, and yes, he did go up. He fought John Jones, so in the weight class, he hasn't lost since Anderson. At the same time, his 2 big marquee wins are Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold. I feel Yushin Okami is better than both of those guys, and the fact that Jacare is on this 5-fight winning streak, 5 straight wins, all finishes, 4 straight in the first round, and he's improved so much. I do feel he is the number 1 contender.
And you've also got to keep in mind, Vitor Belfort hasn't just gotten 1 title shot recently. The guy's gotten 2 title shots semi-recently. He fought John Jones and Anderson Silva. I believe he fought Silva in February 2011, Jones in September 2012. So, he's gotten a title shot within the last year. So, I mean, when you have a guy who doesn't have a title shot compared to a guy who's gotten title shots, I tend to lean toward the guy who hasn't gotten the title shot. Sort of like Ricardo Lamas, and he'll probably get the next shot against Aldo. I mentioned I want to talk about the stylistic matchup, Jacare versus Weidman. If Weidman beats Anderson, that's probably going to be the next middleweight title fight. I think Jacare is a worse style matchup for Weidman than even Anderson is, because Jacare has just looked so deadly his stand-up. We really haven't seen anyone test his stand-up since he lost to Rockhold. He's looked unbeatable. His boxing looks incredible. And we all know on the mat, even though Weidman is a 4-time All-American wrestler, he probably does not want to go to the mat with Jacare. Maybe a guy who possesses, some of the best jiu-jitsu acumen within MMA. What do you think about that matchup? You're obviously sort of biased toward Weidman, but how do you think Jacare matches up to him as compared to Anderson?
Well, right off the bat, I want to say, and this there is a bias here, but I do want to say that I do think Weidman would win that fight. But I do agree with you. That is a much tougher matchup, actually, for Chris Weidman. Jacare's boxing is fantastic. It's improved so much, and his jiu-jitsu is second to none. He's got the best jiu-jitsu in the middleweight division right now. So when Chris fights Anderson, the threat with Anderson's jiu-jitsu, Anderson's got good jiu-jitsu, but Chris has good enough jiu-jitsu, and I think a better grappling game, period, that he nullifies that and can submit Anderson. I don't think he can submit Jacare if he takes him down and goes for a submission. In order to submit Jacare, he would have to hurt Jacare, put him in a world of trouble, bloody him up, do something like that. Just break him and then find the sub somewhere, which is very possible. That happens plenty of times. We've seen plenty of wrestlers beat the crap out of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys and sub them. So I definitely think that's possible. But I agree, this is a much tougher style fight for Weidman, in the sense that Jacare is just, between the boxing and the jiu-jitsu, the style just collides with Chris Weidman perfectly.
For sure, and let's move on to that final fight, the main event, Glover Teixeira defeating Ryan Bader, another first-round TKO, just like the other two. A lot of people questioned Glover because he did get rocked by Bader and actually stormed back to win the fight. You sort of touched on it last night on the final round. What do you think about Glover, and what do you think getting rocked by Ryan Bader tells us? Is it something we should be worried about?
No, it's not something we should be worried about. If anything, it's something we should be praising him for, because he showed his resilience. Ryan Bader is a very powerful puncher, one of the most powerful punchers in the UFC, honestly. He has one punch finishing power. He could put your lights out easy. He could be in a world of trouble. One punch, you're done. And he managed to hit Glover with that right hand, and he dropped Glover. Glover dropped to a knee, got back up, was up against the cage, and even ate more of Bader's power shots, and yet he turned that around, landed a left hook and then a right cross, and that was that. Put his lights out, landed a couple more hammer fists, and that was the end of the night. And to me, that shows Glover has a great chin, because he was able to withstand the extra punches and not go down. It shows he has tremendous heart, and it shows he's able to keep his composure and continue the fight and still be dangerous even when he's in trouble. So you're not out of danger with Glover Teixeira anytime at all. If you have him in trouble, you're still in danger, because all it takes is one shot from Glover to put you out. And on the ground, he's got fantastic grappling. We didn't see it so much in this fight, but we've seen it before. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's got great striking. He's trouble for anybody.
I agree. Do you think Glover, because now Dana has said that Glover's going to get the winner of John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, do you think Glover or Alex poses a bigger threat? I totally agree with you as far as the chin thing goes. Ryan Bader is one of the last people in the 205 class you just want to stand in the pocket and exchange punches with. But do you think Glover or Gustafsson has a better chance at dethroning the king?
I think Glover has a better chance. Gustafsson, although he's long and lanky, being long and lanky only helps you so much, and he's great offensively, but he lacks defensively. He takes a lot of shots, and you can't do that with John Jones, because he'll be able to take him down and rough him up and finish him. He can open a cut. He can get a TKO because of a cut. Glover, on the other hand, he's not afraid to come forward. He can take anything John Jones throws at him, because the fact of the matter is John Jones isn't a one-punch knockout guy. He doesn't knock people out with one punch unless you have no chin. He takes you down. He beats you up. He beats you everywhere, and he brutalizes you, and he can break your face open, but he doesn't knock people out with his hands. So Glover isn't afraid to come forward and get in his face and throw punches and grapple with him. So it makes for a much better style fight. And one thing about Ryan Bader is I believe Ryan Bader was a tougher fight for Glover, in the sense that Glover was more likely, if Glover can withstand punches from Ryan Bader, he can withstand punches from John Jones. Ryan Bader has a much better chance of finishing with, knocking Glover out cold. I'm not saying finishing him with a TKO or a sub, but he has a much better chance of putting Glover out cold, and he couldn't do that. So to me, it's a better fight for Glover. I think John Jones is a better fight for Glover than Ryan Bader, and I think he poses a huge threat to John Jones.
For sure, I totally agree there. You mentioned Gustafsson lacks on the defense side. Jack Slack pointed that that out in a recent article. If you don't know about what he writes, definitely just search Jack Syke MMA, because the guy knows his stuff. He also pointed out that Alexander Gustafsson, remarkably easy to time coming in. Glover, I don't think, is going to be that predictable. So I think on both sides, Glover's going to be more of a threat on offense, and he's going to be a harder guy to finish. I mean, he showed versus Bader that, you're not just going to be able to knock him out. He's not going to be easy to finish. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up UFC Belo Horizonte, and that's the last time I get to say that for a while. Belo Horizonte! Until the next time they go to Belo Horizonte. So let's move on to the news. The first bit of news I wanted to bring up, nothing really to pass along to conversation, so I'm just going to mention it. UFC fighter Matt Grice rear-ended at a red light Sunday night in Oklahoma City. Had trauma, went into surgery, still in the hospital. A fund has been set up for him, and if you feel in the giving mood and want to help, the site is hopemob.org, HOPEMOB.org, and definitely help out the Grice family. He, his wife, and two daughters. Definitely our hearts and prayers out to him. But let's move on. The biggest news as far as MMA goes, crazy news being dropped on UFC tonight. Just a couple days ago, BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar, the trilogy fight at featherweight, and they're going to be the next tough coaches. This is going to be wild. I think the news that it's going to be at 145 is much, much, much bigger than the fact they're going to be tough coaches. But both are going down. BJ Penn will be making his debut at featherweight. The lightest he's ever fought is at lightweight. Before we, go into the fight and talk about Penn at featherweight, there's a whole lot to talk about the featherweight title picture. What was your initial reaction when, I think you were actually at a Mets game, but you were probably on Twitter and saw just a flood of people. Penn Edgar 3 at featherweight, tough 19 coaches, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was at Citi Field for the Mets game. There was no one in the ballpark. It was 9/11, so they were doing the 9/11 memorial ceremony before the game, and it was at the same time that UFC Tonight went on the air, so I wasn't looking at my phone. And then, 10 minutes later, I left my seat. I was behind home plate. I left my seat. I went back into the lounge where they have the free food and stuff. Got some food. I went up to the main concourse just to go out to left field and sit there for a little while. And while I was doing that, I checked my phone and I read the breaking news, and I'm thinking, all right, it's probably going to be something really stupid that we already know. And sure enough, it's BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar are the Ultimate Fighter coaches, and it's at featherweight, and they're going to fight again in a third fight. And I was just like, wow, because I've wanted to see BJ fight at featherweight, and I think him being at featherweight is the best move for him right now, because at 170, he's fat and out of shape. 155, sure, he's still great, but he doesn't have a clean slate there. 145, clean slate, new weight class, let's get it done.
Yeah, MMA fans and fans of Penn both were just praying he moved back to lightweight. Him moving to featherweight might even be better news. People call him a natural featherweight, and let's face it, in his last fight, he was fighting a natural middleweight in Rory McDonald. It was not a good look, him fighting these big welterweights. I'm so glad he's moving down. But let's talk about the actual fight. There's not really much to talk about as far as them being tough coaches. Both of them are respectable guys. They might get their jabs in, but this isn't going to be a season like a Mayhem versus Bisping. This is probably going to be a Jones versus Sana, and both guys have a little bit against each other. Obviously, Penn has a lot against Edgar, but I think both dudes will be able to keep it pretty civil during the tough filming. Ross, you made a really good point last night on the final round that Frankie Edgar is a different fighter. Before I get deep into the fight, sort of expand on that and tell us what you expect from the trilogy match.
Yeah, first of all, it has been 3 years since these guys have fought. They last fought at UFC 118, they fought at UFC 112, UFC 118, both times unanimous decisions for Frankie Edgar. First fight was controversial. I thought BJ Penn won the fight, as did a lot of people. The second fight was absolute domination for Frankie Edgar. He made BJ Penn look like an amateur. It was a perfect performance by Frankie. But after that fight, Frankie, he changed because he's now been hurt in every single fight after BJ Penn. He gets hurt now every single time he goes out there. Even against Charles Oliveira, he had him actually hurt at some point in the third round. He clocked him a couple times. So he takes so much damage, and that adds up. But one thing that guys do is when they have Frankie Edgar hurt, they try and finish him they get overzealous and they try and finish him with strikes. And you can't do that with someone who has so much heart that they can fight out and just keep moving and just keep trying to stay alive. Chin-wise, people confuse heart and chin. They think, oh, this guy's got an iron chin. He gets hurt and he recovers. That's not an iron chin. That's a good heart, but that's not an iron chin. The fact is, he got hurt, and he gets hurt a lot. He manages to get rocked every single time he goes out there, so it doesn't take too much to hurt Frankie Edgar. So if BJ Penn goes out there and he's at 145, he's lean, he's cut, he's going to be shredded, he's going to look the best he's ever looked, he's going to feel the best he's ever felt, and he's super motivated. He wants to erase these two losses, the most bitter losses of his entire career. If BJ Penn goes out there with his boxing and he hurts Frankie Edgar, which I see him doing, I don't think there's any way that Frankie Edgar walks out of that octagon without getting hurt. If he goes out there and he hurts him, he can finish him by getting a submission.
Frankie Edgar gets hurt every time he faces the mailman every day. Frankie Edgar gets hurt every time out.
Yeah, Frankie Edgar gets hurt, so in every single fight. So BJ Penn, if he hurts him in that first round, I see BJ Penn being able to jump on his back and submit him with a rear naked choke or any other submission. I think that's BJ Penn's way to victory, not to try and finish with strikes. And I think he knows that. He's watched the other fights. He's seen what guys like Gray Maynard have done, and he's not going to make that mistake, especially in a fight that means so much to him. Like Dana said, he's battling demons right now, and I completely believe it because the guy, he's lost 2 in a row, and then before that he had the horrible fight with Fitch. So his last win was Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes is already retired. It's a bad time for BJ Penn, and this is a huge fight for him. A win for him puts him right back on track, and I think if he wins, he's going to get a title shot because Aldo Penn sells a ton of pay-per-views, and like it or not, BJ Penn's the only person in the featherweight division who can sell pay-per-views.
And let's talk about that really quick. Currently, the featherweight division is kind of muddled. You have a lot of guys up there, but I think, this fight isn't going to be for a while. The tough season airs in April, which means we aren't going to see Penn Edgar until the summer. It's looking like Aldo's going to face Ricardo Lamas early 2014. We may see Cub Swanson and Chad Mendez at UFC on Fox 9. The winner of that fight would take on the winner of Aldo Lamas, likely Aldo. And I think we might see Penn Edgar 3 around the same time that we see Mendez Aldo. Both of those being incredibly intriguing matchups, honestly. I mean, I could see Chad beating Jose. I don't know what exactly goes on, but if both guys win or if both guys lose, I think Penn Aldo would be a hell of a matchup. And I also kind of wanted to chime in, Ross. I agree totally. We see Penn, a lot of times bring in guys he hasn't trained with before. I wouldn't be shocked. We've heard Maynard training with Nova Uniao. Penn might bring in Maynard. I mean, Maynard got really good at timing the way that Frankie Edgar changes levels. If you throw an uppercut in when, Frankie bolts in and lands a body shot or something, an uppercut can end Frankie's night like that. I think it'll be really interesting. I think it's going to be a very intriguing fight, and we sort of just touched on the featherweight title picture. Bluntly, do you think BJ Penn becomes the first man in UFC history to hold 3 belts at 3 different weight classes, a previous champion at 155 and 170?
I think that's stretching it a little bit. I think that's taking it a little too far. We have to see how this fight with Frankie goes, because Frankie is the favorite and anything can happen. Aldo, I've always thought, even back in 2010 when BJ still had the belt, Aldo is a stylistic nightmare for BJ Penn. Those fast leg kicks, the jiu-jitsu, everything about him. I think his striking is, honestly, I think it's 5-10 times better than BJ Penn. Even though BJ Penn's got amazing striking and amazing boxing, Jose Aldo is just on a totally different level. So it all depends how his next performance is. How will he look in the Frankie Edgar fight? Because we haven't seen him at 145. He could come into this fight at 145 looking terrible with the worst weight cut of his life. Or he can come in with the best weight cut ever, with just completely shredded. He's got muscle mass. He looks great, and he looks motivated, and he dominates Frankie. And then people will be saying, and maybe myself included, that shit, this guy, he could win the belt again. He could win the belt at 145. Plus, we don't know if Jose Aldo will even be champion if that comes to fruition. We don't even know if Chad Mendez will beat Jose Aldo, or Ricardo Lamas will beat Jose Aldo, or Cub Swanson. There's so many guys at 145, and I was talking about it tonight on Twitter after Patricio Pitbull knocked out Diego Nunes in Bellator fast too, one punch. 145 is my favorite division right now because I think it's the most exciting division. You have so many guys, so many top level guys in that weight class that there's about 15 to 20 guys who could be ranked in the top 10 right now. And you don't see that in any other division. 155 is the only other division that there's like 15 guys who could be ranked in the top 10. So lightweight and featherweight are the 2 best divisions, and I think featherweight's the most exciting one. And there's so many challengers in the UFC right now.
Yeah, I love the 45s and 55s too. Those are my second and third favorite weight classes, but I gotta give it to the welterweights. And the welterweights are definitely, their stock is on the way down, so maybe at the end of the year I start leaning a little bit toward the 45s and 55s, but I love the 170, the guys at that weight class. And before we move on, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. In fall 2014, BJ Penn defeats Chad Mendez to become the first man ever to hold the UFC belt at 3 different weight classes. You heard it from your beautiful stallion, magnificent host, Jake, on the MMA Podcast. Penn will be the first man to hold 3 belts. We've been talking about it for a while. We're already an hour into the show, so let's move on to the rest of the news. Unless, Ross, you have anything else you wanted to add on Penn Edgar 3. It is the biggest news of the week.
No, I think I laid it all out there.
Hell yeah. Let's get to the stat of the day, son.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day!
The ancient sport of wrestling dates back to the times of the Sumerians over 5,000 years ago. It's been around since the beginning of the Olympics, and 2020 was looking to be the first Olympic Games ever devoid of wrestling. Not anymore.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day!
evil people over at the IOC were going to cut wrestling. We were going to see the end of Olympic wrestling, which is a very sad thing. But guess what? Last Friday, the IOC brought it back. Wrestling has been saved, all thanks to a man named Chael P. Sonnen. I can vouch. I was in Colorado Springs on Friday. I saw the helicopter fly in. I saw Chael grapple or rappel down a rope into the IOC offices. Chael, thank you for bringing wrestling back. I'm glad it's back. Ross, are you glad that wrestling has been saved?
I am very glad wrestling has been saved. Wrestling is one of the oldest Olympic sports, probably the second oldest. I mean, you had running first, but who were they running from? They were running from wrestlers.
That's right. Wrestling is a beautiful sport. I'm glad it's back. Let's move on, though. This season, a tough 18. We had episode 1 and 2 the last 2 Wednesdays. Before I get into specific things, are you enjoying this season tough, and who are your favorites?
Yeah, I'm actually really, really enjoying this one. I think this is going to be the best season in The Ultimate Fighter because the females, I mean, the males, alright, the males are pretty damn good, but the females, the storyline behind the females and just they're overcoming the adversity and finally getting to the UFC and just seeing it all play out and the upsets and just the trials and tribulations. It's great television and I love it. I think this season is amazing. And my favorites, I like Chris Beal. I think he's the guy to beat as far as the guys, obviously. He's Team Rousey. As far as the girls, I like Jessamine Duke, 5'11", great Muay Thai striker, 2-0 with 1 no contest. She's got great submissions and she's entertaining. I think the winner of the females will be Peggy Morgan. She's 6'1", 135. She is a killer. She's undefeated. She's got great striking, good wrestling, good grappling, good jiu-jitsu. She has no holes in her game. I see her winning.
Hell yeah. I actually do have Jessamine Duke. You mentioned her. Peggy Morgan is definitely going to be a threat as far as, her height and range. As far as the men, I couldn't tell you because Misha Tate's on this episode of Tough. Know what I mean, son? Know what I mean, Ross? Huh? Know what I mean? Talking with my teeth clenched. Yeah. Yeah, son. Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Ronda Rousey. Everybody's been talking about it. Ronda Rousey, people are saying that she's looking emotionally unstable, and we don't know whether it's the producers cutting it up like this or not, but she cried after the Shayna Baszler fight, which in that I totally agree. Being emotional for your teammates and a coach, that's an awesome trait to have. I mean, even if it's a dude tearing up after his dude loses, I respect that because you're empathizing and, these are your guys and you're feeling that pain your guys are feeling. I really respect that. But I think Ronda Rousey may have taken it a step too far when she looked at Misha and said, "You're going to regret every smile you ever smiled." And Misha Tate's like, "Dude, she's my friend, chill out." I think, that's a little over the top because, Rousey, are you saying that you yourself won't smile if one of your people wins? That's kind of screwed up. I mentioned it actually on the final round that I saw on Twitter that someone had tweeted out, "Oh, Rousey goes crazy on Tate because she smiles after Baszler lost." And I thought for sure, okay, Baszler must have been injured. Like maybe she broke her arm in a submission or, did something nasty. Because, the only reason you'd be mad at Misha Tate for smiling is if Shayna Baszler got seriously injured. And she wasn't injured at all. I respect the emotion Rousey's putting into it, but I think she's going a little over the top. As far as Tate, I don't know, man. I'm very cross on Tate. We've had Tate on the show. She's a really nice girl, but at the same time, certain things. Ronda Rousey kicked Team Tate out at 6 p.m., went in at 6 p.m. sharp. Okay, everybody out. And Misha's like, I don't understand why. Wow, this is such a sexist impersonation. I don't even fucking understand. No, Misha Tate said, I don't.
Yeah, messing.
Oh my fucking god. No.
Brian, put the amp on.
Brian, you need to get the extra heavy this time. Okay. No, but Misha said I'm not. We said Misha said, Rousey is kind of, she didn't say Rousey was being a bitch, again, to the sexism, but in a nutshell, she's like, Rousey, she's being such a bitch, kicking us out at exactly 6 p.m. sharp. If your practice ends at 6, you shouldn't be mad that the next people in are kicking you out at 6. I mean, we went through the same thing. I played basketball in high school at like 5:30 exactly when I was on the JV team, the varsity team. Kick us out, get the fuck out. And when I made it to varsity, we enjoyed kicking the JV team out. Was it because they're inferior? Yeah. Yes, but the main reason we're doing it is because it's our time. We need to get out there and practice. So I didn't really side with Tate there, but as far as Rousey, being like, I'll make you fucking regret, and make fucking smile. I think she was being a little over the top. What do you think, Ross?
I don't think she was being over the top at all. I think she's very competitive. She doesn't like to lose, and I love that about when a fighter does not like to lose. That's a great thing because it shows their motivation, it shows their drive. And when you're coaching the Ultimate Fighter, if you are blessed and given the privilege, because this is a privilege, to coach the Ultimate Fighter, to be on national television, to put your stock out there like that, you got to put 150% into that, and you got to show these guys everything you know. You got to make them stars, and you have to be just as invested in them as you are in your own fights. So if I was on the Ultimate Fighter, one of my people lose, I'll be pissed off if I see someone else smiling, because fuck you, this is my guy. You're fucking smiling at him losing, I'm gonna kill you. I'm not actually gonna kill you, but I'm gonna beat your ass when we get in the cage. It's intensity. This is an intense sport, and there's a lot of animosity between the two, and I don't blame Ronda at all for acting the way she acted.
And our boy Ramses tweets in, I wrote a Ronda-inspired song called Smiling at My Girl's Pain after the tough episode. Ross, you were talking about killing people, and that segues beautifully into what I wanted to talk about next. Brian Caraway recently made comments saying, and I'm not like, this isn't me making a joke. Brian Caraway actually said this. He said, Ronda Rousey is very angry pants all the time. In describing Ronda Rousey's mood, he said that Ronda is angry pants all the time. So my question to you, if you could choose any way to murder Brian Caraway, which way would it be?
Listen, Brian Caraway, listen good. This is Ross Dodge, and this is the best Jew in the business speaking to you right now, and I'm bursting right into your brain. Brian Caraway, I want to fight you. I want to fight you tomorrow. I want to fight you the next day. I want to fight you every day for the next year. I want to make you feel pain. You are an asshole.
That's right, Brian
And
Caraway.
I will not state my method of... Sure.
You got no chance against the Jew, Brian Caraway, you motherfucker. No chance in hell. As far as I see it, and whoops, our Ustream has gone out even though my internet's fine. The internet dropped as well. I'm gonna pause this right now. Shit, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that brief technical hiccup. Honestly, I don't know what the fuck happened, but we are back. Skype crashed and Ustream crashed.
Brian Caraway jumped.
My internet stayed online.
Internet. Brian
Caraway is jacking shit like fucking Skynet. I was just gonna mention how I would murder Brian Caraway. No person has ever died of acute marijuana asphyxiation or, an overdose on weed. I would, obviously first I'd need to buy Donald Trump shit and be a billionaire and stuff, but I would need to buy enough weed to murder Brian Caraway. I added it up. I'm going to need about $200 million worth of weed, and I'm going to need to figure out a way to burn it all at once. I'm going to put Brian Caraway in a room and have him die, have him be the first person ever to die of an overdose of marijuana. What do you think about that? That a good idea?
I feel like if you put him in a room with that much marijuana and you light it on fire, I have a feeling he'd die from the fire instead of from the actual weed. Well, you'd be burning him to death, really.
Well, we know he can't put a bar stool in the room, or else he'll flip it upside down and fuck himself to death with one of the legs of the bar stool. But I don't know. I don't know how. The MMA Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, keeping it classy, keeping it right. All right, let's move on past fighter bashing to the point where we talk about them anally raping themselves to death, because we keep it classy here on the MMA Podcast. Hi, Dana White. Hi, Brian Caraway. Hi, Misha Tate. Thanks for coming on our podcast before Misha Tate just talking about your boyfriend doing some really weird shit. No. But it's all in jest. We try and keep it humorous, if not downright sick. We were gonna have Yao's training log here, but Yao's phone fucked up. He couldn't make the podcast, so let's skip that. Get to the announced fights. We got 6 fights to talk about, so let's get through them at a quick pace. It's been a while. It seems like this fight was announced forever ago. Alistair Overeem versus Frank Mir at UFC 167. A fight that both of us will be at. Ross and myself will be there at UFC 167. The tickets came in the mail today. I see Overeem all day in this. Overeem's biggest strength, his clinch, is Mir's biggest weakness, and that's right where it goes, and that's where Mir gets finished in the first round. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, there's nothing really more to say. You put it perfectly. Frank Mir's weakness is the clinch. Overeem's strength is the clinch. He puts him up against the cage. The blueprint's out there already. He puts him up against the cage. He knees him. He punches him. He finishes him. And it's going to be pretty damn brutal. This is his back's against the wall. If he loses, he's gone, no doubt. And he's already said that if he loses to Frank Mir, he's going to find something else to do, which means he's going to go fight in glory and do kickboxing. But yeah, Frank Mir still has a job if he loses. Overeem doesn't. Overeem takes this.
For sure, yeah. Overeem takes it pretty easily. We also got Cerrone versus Dunham. If we see, the Cerrone we love, he wins. If we see the Cerrone that fought Rafael Dos Anjos, Evan Dunham's no one to sleep on. I love Cerrone, but I don't know. What do you think happens in this fight?
I think Donald Cerrone is a great fighter, but I don't think he's able to get over that hump. I think he's fighting someone in Evan Dunham who actually is better than him. I think Evan Dunham's going to win this fight. Evan Dunham if you go back and watch Evan Dunham's last fight, which was Rafael Dos Anjos, who just beat Donald Cerrone, he beat the shit out of Rafael Dos Anjos. He should have won that fight. Honestly, there are people who thought he beat TJ Grant, and that was a very, very close fight. So Evan Dunham, he's an elite guy in my opinion at 155. And if you take away those 2 fights, if you see it the other way and you see it in favor of him, he's on like a 5-fight winning streak. So after he lost to Melvin, he really turned things around, and I think Evan Dunham takes this fight.
He has Evan Dunham as well. Let's move on. Nate Diaz hanging on Gray Maynard in another trilogy fight like the Penn Edgar one we talked about before. Spoke with Mike Kogan briefly about the matchup and how Nate was preparing. It's going to be at the Tough 18 finale on November 30th. What do you think goes down? This is an intriguing match, man.
Yeah, this is a very, very intriguing match. The first fight, we all saw what happened. Second fight, we all saw what happened. First fight, Nate won in the Tough House. Second fight, Gray won, but it was a split decision that I personally believe Nate Diaz won, and I think the general consensus in the MMA community is Nate Diaz won that fight. They both improved in their own ways. Gray Maynard has become a much better fighter, in my opinion. Nate Diaz has improved his boxing and just his overall game. However, hasn't looked good in his last two. Gray really hasn't looked good in his last two. This is a very, very close fight. I'm having trouble picking a winner right now. Right now, I'm leaning Gray Maynard, but I'm going to flip-flop on this one.
Easy enough. I echo your sentiments exactly. Leaning Gray, but I don't know which way I'm going to go. Diaz rose to a title fight recently, and he's looked excellent against certain wrestlers, like your Jim Millers. Gray, I don't know if he's going to be able to impose his wrestling. That's probably going to be the X factor. We know both dudes are aggressive dudes. Gray isn't going to need to hunt down Nate like he did Clay, so this will be a great fight. Definitely tune in for it. A week later, December 7th in Australia, we got two heavyweights. Mark Hunt taking on Bigfoot. Call him the Giant Killer. He's going to break another giant's jaw. I got Mark Hunt winning this one.
Yeah, Mark Hunt, easy. Knocks out Bigfoot Silva. It's in Australia. He's got the hometown crowd behind him. He's looked amazing. His only loss in his last 5 fights is to JDS, and he still went 3 rounds with him, got knocked out in the third. Mark Hunt wins this fight. Bigfoot Silva is very overrated. He's got a couple of fluke wins, and that's why he is where he is. He's going to lose again by knockout for the second straight time.
I agree. Faber versus McDonald, UFC on Fox 9, December 14th. Uriah Faber, I gotta pick him, as much as I like Mayday and as much as Ramsey's, is gonna be upset that I picked against Mayday, Michael McDonald. Uriah Faber has never lost in a non-title fight in his entire career, and I'm not gonna pick against that trend until I see it happen. I have Uriah in a close match. Both of these guys are such fun fighters, so explosive. Neither of these guys ever put on boring matchups.
This is another very, very, very high level, very close fight, and it's very difficult to pick a winner. Uriah, he's fighting in Sacramento, so he's in his hometown, but Michael McDonald is from Stockton, so not that far away. Both guys are so skilled. Faber, he beats everyone when it's not a title fight, but Michael McDonald, he's killing people. He's destroying people. What he did to Brad Pickett, the only person who really done that to Brad Pickett is like Kenan Brown. He didn't even do it that way. He finished him in the first, but it's such a tough fight to pick, and I'm leaning Michael McDonald in this one. I think Michael McDonald's got the power in his hands. He's well-rounded. I think he can actually I think he's going to knock out Uriah Faber. That is my current prediction. I'm picking Michael McDonald by KO TKO.
Michael and Uriah, probably the only discrepancy in their game. Michael's one of the youngest fighters in the division. I think Faber's getting into his mid-30s. It could go either way. Finally, we disagree for one. I have Faber, you have McDonald. Finally, it's a fight that's not quite official yet, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it because it's rumored, and it's very probable that it's also going to be on the UFC on Fox 9 card. Probable that it's going to be the fight that headlines it. Anthony Pettis looking to defend his belt for the first time. Ross, I'll let you lead it off and break it down for us. Cocksucker.
Another fantastic fight, a tougher fight for Anthony Pettis than Ben Henderson. He seems to have Ben Henderson's number. TJ Grant at lightweight is a monster. He destroys people. He's got tremendous power. He's got great striking, great wrestling, very well-rounded. But he's fighting someone in Anthony Pettis who is also extremely well-rounded, a guy who I believe is the best striker in the division and the best submission guy in the division. He can sub anyone off his back. So he can knock anyone out, he can sub anyone, and he's got great takedown defense now. He's been working with Ben Askren a lot. So he's been working with him now for years, so his takedown defense has just gotten so much better. I don't see anyone being able to take him down. I think Anthony Pettis will beat TJ Grant, but it's going to be a little bit closer than Ben Henderson.
TJ Grant has a puncher's chance, but I agree with you. And Anthony Pettis, I was inhaling some sort of gaseous substance when you were breaking that fight down. But, yeah, fucking...
You gotta break out the yay weed when I come up here, dog.
That's right, Joey. I think it's going to be really close, too, but I think Pettis defends his belt fairly easily. Grant has a chance, like Mike Kogan said before. There's a reason they step in the octagon. Anyone has a chance to win. Grant has a chance, but I have Pettis defending his belt. I don't even think it's going to be that close, to be totally honest. I see a first or second round TKO. Those kicks are just, I mean, he's such a great striker. He's I mean, you think about it, he and John Jones are like the American version of Silva and Aldo. Just these incredible, dynamic strikers. You don't know what angles they're coming at. Pettis, he showed it off in that last WEC card. WEC, never forget. But man, he's got such a bright future. He's one of the guys that makes me happy to be an MMA fan. Not just because what he does in the cage, but you look at what he does outside the cage. He's a class act. One of the guys that me and Ross are obviously young, but if you're older, if you have a kid, he is a guy your kid could look up to as an idol. He's a good guy. And I hope he's the king at 155 for a while, because my boy Penn isn't looking for that 155 belt. He's looking for that 145 belt. Pardon me. Let's get to the 10 solid seconds of sports, people. The NFL's back, and the waves are already being made league-wide. Payne throws 7 touchdowns, pass receivers suck ass, Terrell Pryor ran a fuckload of yards. We also see the game of the century tomorrow at 3:30. Johnny Football take on Alabama on CBS. Ooh, I was a couple seconds, I had a couple seconds to spare there. Yeah, Johnny Football versus Alabama tomorrow at 3:30. Are you going to be watching that? Texas A&M, Alabama. You there, Ross? I think you're muted.
Yes, I was muted the whole time. I will be watching my team. I will be watching Ohio State.
The Ohio State Buckeyes. My Gators have a week off, which is good because they had a horrible week last week losing to Miami. Wow, this is like turned into 40 solid seconds of sports. Let's get back into MMA because we know that's what the people want. Damn it, they don't want to be hearing about my shitty ass Florida Gators and Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing. They want to be hearing about GSP. They want to be hearing about Johnny Hendricks. They want to be hearing about all this crazy shit, all this VADA, WADA. I was talking to Ross earlier. I love the show Inside MMA on Access TV every Friday. Record it or something, watch it. It's hilarious. Kenny Rice and Boss Rutan are just goofballs. They started off the show saying, you say tomato, I say tomato, you say WADA, I say VADA. And that's kind of been the main thing, other than Penn, Edgar, GSP, and Hendricks sort of going back and forth with this WADA VADA bullshit. And if you don't know what's going on, I'll try and explain it for you. WADA and VADA are two private companies that offer drug tests, period. And they offer athletic drug tests for steroids and illegal supplements and all that. VADA with a V is a company that George St-Pierre has a personal connection with. WADA with a W is a company that neither fighter really has any connection with. It's more of a third-party company. GSP went to Johnny Hendricks, and this is completely outside the UFC, completely outside the Nevada State Athletic Commission. If you fail one of these tests, they don't suspend you from the fight. I mean, if one of these guys were to fail, they wouldn't, be X'd out, but they would end up having a red flag and all this. So George says he wants to do VADA testing. He has a personal connection with VADA. He wants to do VADA. Dana White is on the fringe saying, whatever you want to do it, I guess. It just clouds up everything, but I can't stop you. GSP says, let's do VADA. Johnny Hendricks' camp says, no, you have a personal connection with VADA. I don't want to do drug testing with VADA, and he probably has two different reasons for it. He knows, A, George has a personal connection with him, so even if he were to fail a test, would they make that public? B, George St-Pierre has a personal connection with him. What if they taint my test to screw me over? So he says, let's do WADA, this third party. George St-Pierre says, no, I'm not doing WADA, even though I'm the one who came up with the idea of doing these third-party drug tests, because I don't want random drug tests. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why would George St-Pierre not want to do drug tests with a company that he doesn't have a personal connection with and not check off to random drug tests? The only reason you can think of is that George St-Pierre juices during training, and that's an accusation he's been given a lot. You look at George's physique. He has a steroidy physique, if you can call it that. I don't know. It's, George is one of the nicest guys in the sport. Has never tested positive for anything, so I'm not going to sit here on the show and say George St-Pierre does steroids, but I am going to ask, what other explanation is there to George St-Pierre not wanting to do WADA? All this is just so shady. Ross, what do you think about all this shit?
It's a red flag for sure. It looks bad on his part, and quite frankly, this whole situation looks bad on both their parts, like Dana said. But there are red flags there with GSP. At the end of the day, the guy has taken 1 million drug tests, and he's passed every single one of them. So I can't call the guy a dirty fighter. I got to call him a clean fighter. Do I think he's on performance-enhancing substances? Absolutely. And I think Johnny Hendricks is also, and I think every fighter who is in mixed martial arts is on performance-enhancing substances, because you do not want to take something unless it's going to enhance your performance. You don't want to take something so you feel shittier. You don't want to take this pill that's going to make you feel, this supplement that's going to make you feel down so that you go out there and you have an adrenaline dump. No, you want to take the supplements that make your body feel good, that give you the nutrients, that do what you need, do the good things for your body, not the bad things. So every substance you put into your body is a performance-enhancing substance if you're a professional fighter. But there are red flags there. GSP does have the physique of someone who is using human growth hormone. He has the gut, the HGH gut, which is the kind of the gut with the abs at the same time. So the jury is out. We'll have to see how this whole thing plays out, but it's definitely a red flag.
It's a red flag before, and to be honest, before all this, I did not really think that GSP, I was not that suspicious of George St-Pierre. This has made me very suspicious of him. And again, UFC 167, Sonnen Evans, GSP Hendricks, Mir Overeem. We're going to be there. We're going to be tweeting live from the fights. So definitely follow us on Twitter, the MMA Podcast, Ross Finkelstein, E before the Alcock Suckers. This is some shady shit. Ross, let's get to this month's edition of the fights we're pumped for. For me, there's really one UFC card coming up, UFC 165, and I was thinking, am I going to pick Jones, Gustafsson, Carmont Philippou, Shab Mitrione, and then I saw it. Easily. Boom. That's the fight I'm pumped for. I can't wait for this fight. Pat Healy taking on Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov. This is going to be a hell of a war. Both of these guys like to finish. Both of these guys are well-rounded. They both can bang. They both can roll and submit people on the ground. Khabib, this up-and-coming guy from Russia, he hasn't lost yet. I think, he actually has the most wins of any UFC fighter to still have an undefeated record. He's taken on Pat Healy, coming over from Strikeforce. He was going to be fighting Gil Melendez. Melendez backed out for good reason. I think Pat really could have beaten Gilbert. I've said it for a while. I think Pat's a future UFC champion. And this is going to be a hell of a war. Whoever wins, they're going to fucking go out swinging. It's going to be great. Ross, what's the fight you're pumped for?
There are a lot of good fights on that UFC 165 card, and I'm pumped for that card, but my fight I'm pumped for the most this month is not in mixed martial arts. It is not at all. It is tomorrow night's showdown of the century, because tomorrow night live and only on pay-per-view for $75 in high definition, you can watch Floyd Money Mayweather, the pound-for-pound king of combat sports in general right now. 44-0, has never been defeated. He is the best boxer in the world, no doubt about it. He goes up against the young, hungry, undefeated Saul Canelo Alvarez, and Canelo is 42-0-1. Canelo has the style to give Floyd Mayweather the toughest fight of his entire career. Floyd Mayweather didn't pick this opponent. Floyd Mayweather has picked every other opponent. This is going to be an amazing, amazing fight, and a lot of people are going to be surprised.
Yeah, and we are going to get to Canelo versus Mayweather as our final topic of the night. But first, I did want to touch on, I mentioned it in the Kogan interview, Nick Diaz apparently happy with retirement. Dana White saying he's got that kickback money from the GSP fight. Nick's still a relatively young guy, like Kogan said. When do we see him return to the octagon? Next year, early next year, late next year?
Who knows? Who knows if he'll ever return to the octagon? I think he will, but that remains to be seen. Right now, there's a lot of guys at 170 that he could fight. So it's interesting. I mean, a rematch with Condit would be awesome, but I don't think they'll go that route. I think they'll give him someone who's coming off a loss also, maybe 2 straight losses, if he does decide to come back. So we'll see what happens. And he also has War MMA. Who knows if he'll wait out his UFC contract or request his release and maybe fight for his own promotion if he does another show. So jury's out.
Didn't some crazy report come out recently that he was offered a fight against Machida at middleweight?
Yeah, the UFC, Joe Silva came up with the idea, he pitched it to Dana White, the idea of Lyoto Machida versus Nick Diaz at 185, and they scrapped the idea because of Nick Diaz. There was apparently some issues with Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz was in no position to fight anytime soon, apparently.
Well, that goes against what we heard from Kogan, that he's running triathlons and stuff. Who knows? Maybe he was in shape to fight, but not, ready to pass a drug test, if you know what I mean. Smoking that herb too much. Final topic of the night. We are an MMA podcast, but this really might be the biggest combat sports event of my life, of Ross's life. The last 30 years, we haven't seen a fight as big as Mayweather versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. It's a fight, like, Kogan said, the gate's $20 million. How insane is that? It's going to break pay-per-view records. Currently the record being held by Floyd versus Oscar De La Hoya, a guy who's actually promoting the fight. This is a fight that very well could beat that pay-per-view record. Just a hell of a matchup. Ross, you briefly mentioned Floyd is the king of combat sports. That shoulder roll. I mean, every time someone tries to punch him, he does that shoulder roll, and they punch his shoulder and just rolls off. And, he is incredibly hard to hit. He's definitely one of the best pound-for-pound fighters we've ever seen. Maybe the best defensive boxer we've ever seen. Just excellent footwork, but he's fighting a guy that, this fight, I was telling Ross earlier, has so many similarities to Silva Weidman, the young guy, up and coming. I mean, stylistically not very good for the champion. Even down to Anderson and Mayweather both tried handing the challenger the title belt. And on the other side, Chris and Saul both just, looking incredibly confident at the weigh-ins, smiling. This is a fight that, odds are Floyd wins this fight, but I'm picking Saul. He is the up-and-coming guy, and I was talking to our friend Yao the Truth. Follow him on Twitter, YAO_the Truth. He was going to join us, but like I mentioned, his phone failed. He is a Floyd fan, but I was telling him, Floyd's a legend. Floyd's one of the best ever, but all legends end. Tomorrow night, I think the legend of Floyd Mayweather sees its first loss with Canelo. What do you think? I mean, honestly, this is our last topic. We're, only at an hour 20-something. I want you to break it down as deep as you want. You know more about boxing than I do. For people watching, what should they look for? What's a little bit more of the background on each guy? I mean, tell us your spiel. Mayweather, Canelo, the biggest combat sports event of either of our lifetimes.
Yeah, aside from WrestleMania 28, this is the biggest combat.
Yeah, aside from that, obviously, that's a given.
I've seen in a long. Well, John Cena and The Rock was just it was the biggest match. It was the biggest fight in the history of all of combat sports. But anyway,
I heard The Rock went through 7 gallons of arm butter during WrestleMania 28. Insane, just absolutely incredible.
He's a tremendous man. But back to Mayweather Canelo, this fight is it's magnificent. It's huge. It's the biggest fight in boxing today. It's one of the biggest fights, in my opinion, of all time. It's going to sell 2 million pay-per-views. It's going to do tremendous. I don't know if it's going to beat the De La Hoya Mayweather record of 2.4 million, but I think this will sell 2 million, and it will come close. It's trending so well. But Saul Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is the toughest fight for Floyd Mayweather that he's had in a long time, if not ever. He's bigger than him. He's dropping down. They're fighting at a catch weight of 152. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, Canelo, he's gonna look terrible at the weigh-ins. He's gonna have a bad cut, and he's gonna be slow, and he's not gonna look good." To me, I thought he looked great today at the weigh-ins. He had energy. He had a good cut. I think he goes in there tomorrow, and I think he fights the fight of his life. Floyd Mayweather is one of the, if not the smartest fighter but he is the smartest fighter in boxing. Him and Bernard Hopkins are so great defensively. They don't take a lot of damage, especially Bernard. But Floyd, he's such a great boxer because he breaks down his opponents in his head, and he's able to just do things in there and just make them all look foolish. He made Robert Guerrero look completely foolish. But what stands out to me is the Miguel Cotto fight, the De La Hoya fight, and then for Canelo, the Trout fight, just the performance he put on against Austin Trout, the performance he put on against Shane Mosley, the performance he put on against Josecito Lopez. He has just looked unbelievable in every single one of his fights, and he is a handful for any guy around him and in weight. I think this is a bad style for Floyd. This is the first time Floyd has not picked his opponent. He did not get with Guerrero, with Cotto, with Ortiz, with all those guys. He was able to choose who he wanted to fight. But after the Guerrero fight, doing poorly for Showtime and not getting the numbers they needed and basically putting them $20 million in the hole, they forced him into the Canelo fight because it was the biggest fight you could make in boxing and everybody wanted to see it. And I think he's legitimately nervous for this fight. He's fighting the bigger guy. He's fighting the young, hungry challenger. Canelo's got the knockout power. He can put his lights out. He's got a great jab. He can put him up against the ropes. Floyd's not going to be happy against the rope. He's got great body shots. Floyd's got that great shoulder roll, like you said, and he's just so calculated and he's so good. Canelo Alvarez is the young, hungry lion, to quote Vitor Belfort. He's 23 years old. He's a superstar. He has the entire country of Mexico behind him. He has the Mexican fan base. He has everyone in the arena in the MGM Grand is going to be behind him. The crowd at the weigh-ins today, all 12,000 people there at the MGM Grand, were supporting Canelo, really. It was a lot of boos for Floyd Mayweather, a lot of cheers for Canelo. So I really think we're going to have a new king of boxing tomorrow night, and I think so. Canelo Alvarez is going to establish himself as the biggest star in boxing today.
For sure, dude. I couldn't agree with you anymore, and you know, for the sake of the podcast, a lot of times I like to disagree and play devil's advocate. Here, I mean, I can't go against what you're saying. He has the tools it takes to beat Floyd. You know, Floyd in his last few fights has taken damage. He's taken shots. He can't afford to do that against Canelo. And I think Canelo wins the fight. I think it goes the full 12 rounds, but I think Canelo wins by a few points across the board. Aside from who you think is going to win, outside the cage, all that, take the guys' styles out of it. Who are you rooting for and why? I mean, obviously Floyd, a lot of people love him. I guess they don't know about his background, about beating women and, you know, being a racist and all that good stuff. But who are you going to be rooting for during the fight?
Absolutely, positively, 100% Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez is actually one of my favorite fighters, so I've been wanting to see him fight Floyd for a while now, for over like a year and a half at this point. So I'm pulling for Canelo all the way. I'm a big Canelo fan, and I can't wait to see him get it done.
For sure, and I agree with you. Actually, one of our Twitter followers called when you were in the middle of your spiel on Canelo versus Floyd, and we weren't able to get to him, but I tweeted back at him after he said we had no answer. I told him we'd call him back to talk MMA. What's up, brother? What's up, cocksucker?
What's up, cocksucker? Shout out to the MMA Podcast and Ross Finkelstein, E before the L.
Cocksuckers, that's right. Yeah, we're sort of just talking BS. And what did you want to talk about? A lot of stuff on the MMA docket. Penn Edgar. We were just talking about the boxing match tomorrow night.
I heard about the boxing, MMA all day. Want to give you guys the inside scoop on the 165 in Toronto because yours truly will be there.
Oh shit!
And the Toronto word on the street is that John Jones is a fancy boy.
Cocksuckers.
Damn. Do I need to cue up the goddamn fancy boy music? Our boy, follow him on Twitter, MEDNDEJA. But tell us, sir, will I cue up the music? Why is John Jones such a fancy boy?
John Jones is a fancy boy. Jeez, I could go on all day, but number one reason is he wants to rat on people smoking weed. He's lucky that he cheated with steroids to beat Chael Sonnen.
Oh, shit.
I mean, I could go on. He's the fakest cat in New York. He wears tight gym shorts when he's not training.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn, son. He's a cocksucker, and that should be the number one reason of all.
Do you think that story about him stopping the purse dealer was a real story, or do you think it was completely fabricated?
That's fabricated all day. There's no truth to it whatsoever. Not at all. There's no way that he could even run that fast. And if anything, he stole the purse, and somebody stopped him. Damn,
so you're calling from Canada. Are you a big GSP fan?
You could. I like that a Canadian has a belt, but lay and pray? No way. No way, son. There's no way.
Yo, me and Ross were talking about it a second ago. This WADA shit's really sketchy. He doesn't want to do random drug testing. You think your boy's juicing?
Absolutely. No questions about it. How can you bring it up and duck out? How can you bring it up and duck out? There's no way. GSP is greasing. He's juicing. He's anything to win. Just lay and pray Greg Jackson can suck a cock.
Damn, cocksuckers. So you're
hard.
Going hard. So you're going to UFC 165. I got to ask the main card bouts. Who you got? Healy versus the Eagle.
Well, Healy all day. Just a little bit more weed might help him, to be honest, because now that they boosted it 300%, he should be clear. All day.
All right.
All day.
What about Barao versus Wineland? You got Barao just murdering this guy?
Got their fingers crossed that alien reptilian motherfucker Barao gets knocked out and Wineland's the new champ. That's what we need.
Damn, and John Jones and Gustafson. You think Gustafson beats the fancy boy?
I can only hope that we have another new champ in 2013, but all signs are pointing to the fancy boy, unfortunately.
They are. Yo, you got your tickets to UFC 165. Me and Ross got our tickets to 167 in Vegas. You fucking plan a trip to Vegas November 16th. We got to get a beer, cocksucker.
Hey, that's what we need to do. Absolutely. On me. You guys are awesome. MMA Podcast, Ross Finkelstein, his new podcast. You got the word on the street. Of course, man. You guys are awesome, man. I love listening to you guys. Thank you. Much respect.
Take it easy, brother. We love you to death, cocksucker. I'll play the drop one more time.
All right, cocksuckers.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
And that was our boy, once again on Twitter, MEDNDEJA, Med-in-Deja. Mystery Meds is his name. Follow that beautiful cocksucker. And if you do want to call in yourself, be a part of the conversation, the show is ending, but next Friday we will be back live, and the number to call in is 213-457-3380, or you can Skype us at the MMA Podcast. I want to thank everybody listening in. I want to thank our caller, Mystery Meds. I want to thank my boy, Ross Finkelstein. I want to thank Ramses at the Aunt Jimmy Show, the word on the street. I want to thank Yao the Truth. I want to thank Alan Westland, Eagle AH. I want to thank Chris Lowenstein. I want to thank Mike Kogan for coming on the goddamn show today. Ross, what do you got to say for yourself?
What do I got to say for myself? Look, we're blowing up. We got people calling in. We got fans all around the world. We got fans in Canada. We have fans in Brazil. We've got fans everywhere. This is the MMA Podcast. This is your home for mixed martial arts. This is your home for shenanigans, and Jake is doing it big. Follow me on Twitter, at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. I'm defending the Word on the Street Podcast World Championship. I'm doing big things with the final round. I'm making posters, but most of all, I am better than you.
That's right. He's better than all you cocksuckers. I'll play the drop one more time.
Cocksuckers.
That's right. All right. But, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it so much. Episode 60. I can't wait for the next 60. Having a bunch more guests on in the future. I want to thank Mike Kogan and all of our previous guests. If you want to check out the archive, it's on YouTube. Just follow the channel at the MMA Podcast and look at all the interviews we've had before. Eddie Bravo, Chris Lieben, Misha Tate, Tom Lawler, Michael Schiavello. I'm leaving a lot of John fucking Anik. Got a lot of people. Can't mention them all. Thanks for tuning in. We love the shit out of each and every one of you. We'll be here for a long, long time. Until next time, I guess. We on.
Stay black.